Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Om Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Krishna Bhutale Vimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunya Vadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya
Shri Krishna Jai Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Let's all say Namo Vishnu Padaya
Krishna Prasada Bhutale
Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharya Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Kastya Yadesha Srila Prabhupada ki. Welcome back, everyone. Uh-oh, we're thinning out. That's not a good sign. And I'm not doing my job. Or it means, who knows? Okay, this is the final lesson of the Sambandha section of the seminar. Sambandha, in our case, means deepening our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Please come forward so that they can fill in. If they come in late, they can fill in the back. Okay. Lesson 3. This lesson has the same title as the whole series. That's because it's what I call the signature or sample lesson of the seminar. When there's only time for me to present one lesson when I'm passing through a place, then this is the one I do. So this lesson best represents the whole series. Lesson 3, Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. In lesson 2, we examined the founder Acharya principle, its origin and historical development. In this lesson, we'll look at our own founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and how he realized and revealed his position as service to his Guru Maharaj, to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and to all generations of his followers. So this is continuing the spiritual history lessons. And it is fascinating how Lord Chaitanya did reveal to Prabhupada his position, what he had to do, what Lord Chaitanya was asking him to do. And then how Prabhupada, as he was realizing this, how he revealed it to us very carefully. Okay. So, as I said before, whenever I have a title slide to a lesson, there's always a reason behind that. Raise your hand if you can tell us where Srila Prabhupada is. Anybody know where he is there? Raise your hand. London, where London? Right, London country. That's obviously not Soho Street.
Bhakti at the manor.
Yeah, it's the manor. And you can still go to the manor and go into Prabhupada's quarters and look out the window and still see the south lawn there where Prabhupada sat. So thanks to some of my god sisters, they've really kept the rooms nicely, especially Sarvamangala Mataji. So this is 1973. This is the summer where Srila Prabhupada did install Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda 43 years ago this month. Yeah, or maybe next month. Was it July or August that he installed it? Anybody know? I forget. I think it might have been August because it was Janmashtami. Yeah. Okay, so 43 years ago, there's Prabhupada. He appears to be graciously accepting perhaps a toy from this little girl. And this little girl, maybe she's 4 years old, 5 years old. So if she's still with us on this planet, she's going to be in her late 40s. And so the point of this image is that this little girl has just as much opportunity to have a foundational Shiksha relationship with Srila Prabhupada, as does my god sister in the background, Srimati Hemavati Mataji, who was a big pioneer with her husband in Germany. Because a big theme of this whole series is how we all really do share the same core identity. We're all foundationally related to Srila Prabhupada as his Shiksha followers, regardless of generation or zone or god family. That's the kind of common identity that we have to really internalize for Prabhupada's ISKCON Sangha to go on for hundreds, thousands of years. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes at this point in the seminar, I ask people, in 108 words or less, can you describe, it could be 8 words, your relationship with Srila Prabhupada? Anybody want to try to do that? In a few words? Any brave soul? Yes.
I find him every time I open the books. The direct relationship.
Prabhupada speaks to you through his books, his everlasting Vani. Really good, yeah. Anyone else?
So, teacher.
Teacher, he's your teacher. But you also have, are you initiated?
No.
Okay. But he's your foundational Shiksha Guru.
Yeah.
So you get that. That's a good foundation from which to select in initiating and instructing gurus. When you know Prabhupada, when you're absorbed in his life, teachings, mood, and mission, then you begin to see who actually is representing Prabhupada. Not just by what he says, by what the person does. Right? Actions speak louder than words. Anybody else? Manaji, what's your relationship?
Totally dependent on my spiritual master is totally dependent on all those. So it's a relationship of total dependence. Without Prabhupada, there's no Krishna consciousness. Only.
That's a good realization. Yeah, think of the founder of Acharya, in our case, Srila Prabhupada, like the sun. And Prabhupada wants us to purely reflect the love and the light of his teachings so that we become moon-like devotees. So whatever, for all generations, we can circle him and draw bigger circles and bigger circles, for 10,000 years, hopefully. Okay, we can go on and on about that, but at the end of the seminar, I'm going to ask you to revisit that question, what's your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, and maybe you can share how our little journey here, even though we're only going half the lessons, has influenced that relationship. Okay, we're going to have some fun now, a little transcendental history. There's Prabhupada in Tompkins Square Park, beating on the bongo. Somebody gave him a bongo. There was no verdungas even in this con in those days. Just Prabhupada had a little bongo. But he was playing the bongo so expertly. Even the jazz musicians, they'd come in the park and say, "Hey, let's go hear the Swami. He gets in some mean licks." One time at New Vrindavan, Prabhupada was just about to get a massage outside. He just had a gamsha on, and he was strumming his ribs, and it sounded like a drum. And so the servant said, "Srila Prabhupada, how did you learn how to do that?" Practice. Practice makes perfect. There's, this, I think that's Brahmananda. See the Brahmananda right here? That's Brahmananda. And that's Achyutananda. This is Bruce and Chuck. And they were one of the first to get up in the park bravely and dance. Okay, so that's as good as it gets. Believe it or not. Oh, that's a little better?
No, just more sharp.
Yeah? Thank you. We can't do much about Surya, but it's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, so we're going to look at some prophecies. And devotees, sometimes they know these, sometimes they don't. But does anybody know, the key word in the question is Puranic. Not the fish in South America that eat you alive, but as in piranhas. The piranhas. Does anybody know a Puranic prophecy that Prabhupada fulfilled? Puranic. No, not Bhavishya. That's a good guess though, because Bhavishya means future. Okay, well, here's the background. 5,000 years ago, according to the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, Ganga was really worried because she could sense Krishna is just about to leave the planet. So Goddess Ganga went to Dwarka, and it says, she said, quote, "O Lord, we can see that your pastimes are about to end, and people are becoming more and more materialistic. You have been very merciful to us. After you leave, however, all the sinful people of Kali Yuga will bathe in our waters, and we will become overwhelmed with sinful reactions." Smiling, the Lord replied, "Be patient." And now we're going to see how patient the Lord is requiring her to be, because, Yudhishthira Prabhu, read that.
After 5,000 years,
That's patience, 5,000 years. Now be patient.
my mantra upasaka, worshipper of the holy name, will appear in this world. Spread the chanting of my holy name everywhere.
Yes. And then Krishna says, not only in Bharatvarsha, But all over the world, people will chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And because the devotees of Lord Hari are so pure, anyone who contacts them will become purified from sinful reactions. These pure devotees will visit Bharatvarsha, and now Chris is going to turn her concern right back on her, because she said, all these Kali Yugans, they're going to come and dump their bad karma in our sacred waters. And so Krishna says, no, these pure devotees who are going to be inspired by my mantra Upasaka, who's going to spread it all over the world, they will visit Bharatvarsha and purify you of sinful reactions. Whoa. And now, here's the line of the prophecy that Prabhupada told us, and you probably have heard of this. This is the only line of the prophecy that Prabhupada told us. So you not only have to finish the line for me, I'm pretty sure most of you know this, but you have to tell me why was this the only line that Prabhupada told us of the prophecy. Krishna says, this period of worldwide chanting of Hare Krishna will continue for
10,000.
10,000 years. Why didn't Prabhupada tell us the background to the pastime of the Ganga? Why did he just tell us that? Raise your hand.
Because it was referring to him, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, and therefore...
He didn't want to be
Right,
included.
exactly. This is not the way of our founder Acharya. He never pointed at himself. He never said, I'm the avatar, I'm the incarnation, right? This is what George Harrison liked. He never said, I'm the one, I'm all it, and talked down. He never talked down to me. He was like a friend, you know, he was sharing with me. Yeah, if Prabhupada had told us the background, then we would have said, oh, you're the mantra Upasaka. You're the one predicted in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. All glories to you. That's not the way of our founder Acharya. Utterly, absolutely transparent to Krishna. If people have heard of Hare Krishna in this world, and as we've been hearing from different speakers, not everybody has heard of Hare Krishna. But even if they've heard of Hare Krishna, chances are even less that they've heard of Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada didn't call attention to himself. He didn't call it the Bhaktivedanta Swami movement. He called it the Hare Krishna movement. Yes. So that's one glory of Prabhupada, and that's a prediction. It's a little controversial because some scholars say the mantra Upasaka is Lord Chaitanya. But even if that's true, who did Lord Chaitanya leave it to spread all over the world? Well, we're going to see now. Who knows a Gaudiya prophecy that Prabhupada fulfilled? More devotees know this one. This is pretty famous. Raise your hand. Gaudiya means since... Oh, I saw Prabhu first. Yeah, you've got it. Okay, let's give you the background and then I'll have you read the punchline, Prabhu, on the screen. So it's a similar idea. Instead of Ganga going to Dwarka to express her concerns to Krishna, this is Narada Muni going to Golok Navadvip, where Lord Chaitanya is eternally doing his Sankirtan pastimes, and he says the same thing. This Kali Yuga, I can see Lord, because he's Trikala. He can see what's going to happen. This is going to be so bad. How are we going to save these people from the suffering of this Kali Yuga? And Lord Chaitanya is assuring him, quote, with the powerful chopper of Nam Sankirtan, I will cut the hard knots of demoniac desires from the hearts of everyone. And then in Chaitanya Mangal, Srila Lochandas Thakur writes, Yadi papi sharit dharma dure deshe yoy mora senapati bhakta yaibe tatoy. Prabhu, read that. Read. Can you read?
Yeah. Even if the sinners reject religion or flee to foreign countries, I will send more Senapati Bhakta, my military field commander, to go there and deliver them.
Even if they reject religion, which is what a lot of people do in Kali Yuga, because they see so much hypocrisy and violent and wrongdoing. We see it today in the name of religion. And flee to foreign countries, even if the sinners, one recording by Godbrother is saying, Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that only people who are pious take to Krishna consciousness. This is 728. Yesham Pantagatam Papam. But I can see that before I met you, I was doing all the sinful activities, so why am I here? And Prabhupada famously said what, you know?
I purify you.
Yes, I created your good fortune. It's not that you're here because you of your own merit. Now you go out and create it for others. Okay, and now Prabhupada himself, look at this. Senatati Bhakta, my military field commander. Prabhupada, he would use these military images a lot. And he very much looked like the military field commander with his head held high, leading the pack. And he says in Bhagavad Gita that one should execute Krishna consciousness as if in military discipline. But there is something similar to, there's a war quote too. When one takes up Krishna consciousness, one more or less declares the illusory energy, right? And then Prabhupada would say about, well, especially the book distributors, he would say they're soldiers and they're dropping these bombs in the laps of the conditioned soul, just like during wartime the bombs are raining down like anything. So, yeah, a lot of kind of military images from Srila Prabhupada. Of course, spiritual military. The material military is based on envy and fear and hatred, but Prabhupada's, his Sangha, as it is based on love and trust. Or we have a new face on it now. We call it devotee care. Because for cynical people like me, if we hear the word love and trust, oh yeah, I've heard that before, ha ha ha. Love money, trust no one. So let's give it a new face. Now let's call it devotee care. Let's call it a counselor system. Oh yeah, I'm for that. I'm for that. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to change the words a little bit. You just have to tweak it to exorcise the cynicism out of old guys like me. Okay, so now we're going to do some more history. Okay, so who knows, raise your hand if you can tell us, who within the last 131 years, yeah, 131 years, gave us another Gaudiya prophecy that Prabhupada fulfilled. I just gave you a hint when I said 131 years. Yes, Manoj. You got the mic too?
Yeah, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but
Yes.
I don't remember exactly.
Well, you're going to read the prize, because you knew that. All right, read that.
A personality will soon appear in order to preach the teachings of Sri Chaitanya and move unrestrictedly of the whole world with his message.
He not only spoke that, but he published it in his Sajjana Toshini, which was revived in the 1920s as the Harmonist. And Prabhupada himself, he had a keen sense of history, and especially spiritual history. So Prabhupada told us, he would always tell us a lot about his Guru Maharaj during the appearance and disappearance days. There's about 10 or 12 recorded lectures. Prabhupada said in 68 in LA, quote, he, 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wanted to introduce this Krishna consciousness movement by sending his book, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and precepts. Fortunately, that year was my birth year, and by Chris's arrangement, my Guru Maharaj and I came in contact. And now if you're a student of Prabhupada's spoken word, this is a famous rhetorical flourish from His Divine Grace. I was born in a different family. My Guru Maharaj was born in a different family. Who knew that I will come to his protection? Who knew that I would come in America? Who knew that you American boys will come to me? These are all Krishna's arrangement. Very dramatic the way Prabhupada said that. So what we're going to do for the next few slides is look at some of these historical arrangements that Lord Chaitanya made to send his Senapati Bhakta to just the right place at just the right time to just the right people to launch the Hare Krishna movement, to really, spark it, so it would really go fast all over the world. And somebody asked the question yesterday, why? Oh, it was Ramanath Sukabu. He asked, why did Lord Chaitanya allow this to happen? His renaissance to get eclipsed. Why did he do that? So now we're going to see why he did that. Well, first of all, what historical arrangement did Lord Chaitanya make? Well, he came, see? He came. Panchatattva came, there they are. In the 16th century, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement ignited a bhakti revival throughout India. Yes, okay. So, you got the mic? No, we pass it over here. I'll tell you what, you keep it, because it's usually the ladies that have the softer voices, so maybe we don't need to mic. The men. Okay. Prabhu, why don't you read that?
During the 7th, 18th and 19th centuries, when Lord Chaitanya's movement was forced underground in India, the age of discovery and the Industrial Revolution brought technology and new horizons to Europe.
You see, Lord Chaitanya, he came and he was encouraging people to explore, if you will, their inner space. What's that verse? CC, Adi 1:4. Anarpita Turing Chirat. May that Lord, Kaviraj Goswami is saying, who was known as the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, be transcendentally situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Right? Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation ever bestowed before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. So Lord Chaitanya came to reveal intimate relationships with Krishna. Now, reflected outside of India at this time, in the West, was an awakening of the natural world, throwing off the shackles of a corrupt church in Rome and exploring, the heavens with telescopes and microscopes and building sailing ships, going around the world. The French landed in Pondicherry and the British came and the Portuguese went to Goa. Even they went to India, right? So they were starting to feel their, we say in America, feel their oats, spread their wings materially. This is part of Lord Chaitanya's plan. And the Industrial Revolution, to this day, we've had continual revolutions in transportation and communication to shrink the world, to make it a smaller place in terms of access. So, that's what was going on, part of Lord Chaitanya's plan. And then, read that.
In the late 19th century, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur rediscovered Lord Chaitanya's pure teachings and envisioned a worldwide movement of Krishna consciousness.
Right, we said that yesterday, but he knew he didn't have time to manifest the movement, because think about it, there was a prediction in Chaitanya Bhagavat, right? Pritipiti Achiyata Nagarari Gra. In as many towns and villages as there are on the surface of the earth, my holy name will be preached. It wasn't happening. Come on, hundreds of years were passing since his disappearance. Nothing was. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wanted to get this going. So he envisioned what it would take to do this, everything from the GBC down to Namahat and Bhakti Vriksha and all kinds of plans. But he didn't have time to manifest it. So he prayed for his ray of Vishnu's son who appeared, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta.
In the early 20th century, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Gaudiya mission revived Krishna consciousness in India and sent the first Vaishnava preachers abroad.
Unfortunately, even though that was the crowning glory of the Gaudiya Math, when they did go abroad, they were recalled after a couple of years. Not much success. Fortunately, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, as we will dramatically see in tomorrow's lesson, had at least one disciple who was able to really fully imbibe the mood and mission of his Guru Maharaj and be surrendered enough to be empowered enough to do it. But before Lord Chaitanya sent that Senapati Bhakta in 1965, Lord Chaitanya made some very interesting historical fine-tunings in the 1960s, early 60s, before he sent Prabhupada in 65, and here it is.
In the 1960s, when Srila Prabhupada sailed to the West, the Roman Catholic Church eased its attitude towards other faith traditions. The US relaxed its Asian immigration laws, and the American counterculture began to look to the East for truth.
Look at this. A religious fine-tuning. There was are there any Roman Catholics in the house? Okay. Do you remember what happened between 1961 and 1965 in the Catholic? Yes. Second Vatican Council, Vatican II, Pope John the 23rd. Very popular pope. Kind of similar to Pope Francis today is also trying to update and reform the church in his own way. He called this big meeting, and it lasted 4 years. And yeah, he even died in office. He died at 63, but fortunately his successor reconvened the meeting. And in 65, just before Lord Chaitanya sent Srila Prabhupada, they published their resolutions. And one of them was really significant in terms of Prabhupada coming. For the first time in its 1,500-year history, the Roman Catholic Church acknowledged that God could reveal himself in many ways. God's grace can manifest in many ways. It was no longer necessarily true that if you weren't a card-carrying Roman Catholic that you were going to hell. Thank you very much. They dropped their claim of exclusivity. You know, and then I think 5 years later, the next pope took it back. He said no. But anyway, when Prabhupada came, for a time, there was a little window of time there, when Roman Catholics worldwide, you know, hundreds of millions of them, they had subtle but very powerful psychological permission to look at other teachings. So, for example, one fine day in the summer of 1966, a Roman Catholic young man was walking down from his job at the welfare office in New York City on the Lower East Side, and he was walking down 2nd Avenue to his apartment for his lunch hour. And he had to walk fast because he didn't have much time. But he noticed, as he passed 26 2nd Avenue, he looked, and he'd been reading the Buddha's teachings. So just, he caught a glimpse of somebody in that storefront who looked for all the world to him like Lord Buddha. Big earlobes, shaved head, sitting cross-legged, peach-colored robes, very formidable face. So he made a mental note because it said in the window, Bhagavad Gita classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday evening, 7 p.m. So at the first opportunity, this young man went back, sat down in the storefront, and full of Buddha's teachings, and at the end of the class, he asked Swamiji a very Buddhist-type question. Swamiji, how can I understand that I'm just nothing?
No.
That's the Buddha solution. You're suffering? Well, get rid of your individuality, get rid of your ego, get rid of yourself. Emerge into nirvana. Out like a candle. That's nirvana. Out like a candle. So what did Prabhupada say? You're not nothing, you're something. But you're not this body. And that began a relationship between Swamiji and Steve. And then on Radhastami in September '66, Steve became Satsvarupa Brahmachari. And then 6 years later, on Lord Nrsinga's appearance day in Los Angeles, he became Satsvarup Das Goswami. And then 6 years later at Gaur Purnim in 1978, just after Prabhupada went back to Godhead, he was asked by the GBC to write Prabhupada's authorized biography. These are all the arrangements of Krishna. Yeah. So when Prabhupada, that was just one thing. Yeah. That's a religious arrangement. How about, look at this, the USA relaxed its Asian immigration laws. I hardly saw an Asian person growing up in America. I mean, maybe a few older Chinese people who would come in. Anyway, because the U.S. was not allowing Asians in. Because ever since World War II, when Japan was our enemy, there was very suspicious, right? So they didn't let people. But just as Prabhupada was coming, the United States Immigration and Naturalization Service, finally, after 20 years, from 45 to 65, they relaxed those restrictions. And Prabhupada was able to come, and he eventually got his green card, his residency card. He was able to stay and come and go freely to preach. So that was a powerful political fine-tuning Lord Chaitanya did. But here's the most powerful one. The American counterculture began to look to the East for truth. Krishna gave Prabhupada an audience. Prabhupada did not have an audience in India. No one cared what he was saying. They were trying to copy the West after they got their independence in 47. They could care less. In fact, Nehru, the first prime minister, he used to sometimes come into Prabhupada's pharmacy in Prayag Pharmacy, Day's Pharmacy. And Prabhupada said he noticed that Nehru and his father, they always bought Western stuff. They didn't want anything Ayurvedic or homeopathic even. It was always Western, They were really into the West, fanatic Westerners. So what did Prabhupada find when he came over? He found a whole generation of young people, this was mad after anything from India, basically. We were all reading autobiography of a yogi and Be Here Now and, Hermanasa, Siddhartha, Journey to the East, all these books, So what did Prabhupada do when he finally came in 65? Alone in America, Srila Prabhupada tried to revive Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's Gaudiya mission. And he did that in two ways. First, the first thing Prabhupada did was, he was studying Americans. He was really studying his audience, because he'd only heard about us, read about us, heard about it, but he really wanted to study his candidates, potential candidates. So he got his first opportunity. Where did he first go for 3 weeks?
Boulder.
Boulder? Butler. Boulder's in Colorado. That's where Dinabandhu Prabhu joined. Boulder. And Butler is in Pennsylvania. And Butler, Pennsylvania, to this day, it's a very small town. But its claim to fame is, welcome to Butler, home of the Jeep. It's where the Jeep was invented on the eve of World War II. So anyway, Prabhupada was in the Agrawals, not even in their house, because they didn't have room for him, so they put him up at the YMCA. You have YMCA in Sweden? Yeah? Okay. And then Prabhupada would walk several blocks and cook at the Agrawals. So one day, Sally Agrawal said, Swamiji was using her bathroom, and all of a sudden she noticed there's water coming out from under the bathroom door. What's going on? Swamiji, are you all right? And she opens the door, and there's Prabhupada trying to wash his clothes, Indian style, on the floor of the bathroom. Mush and gush and whack and bat. And unfortunately, the floor did not slope into a drain, right? It wasn't an Indian bathroom floor. It was just coming out the bottom of the door. So Sally says, oh, Swamiji, I'll have to show you the washing machine. Washing machine? What's that? And then Prabhupada saw how she was cleaning her house. Vacuum cleaner? What's that? Prabhupada, he would say, sometimes when I was in New York, I would just put a coin in the bus and get on the bus, and I would just ride all around New York to see how you people were living. Something wonderful to me, something amazing. So Prabhupada, he was studying Americans, but he was writing. Writing who? Whom? His godbrothers. I'm here! I made it! I'm in America! This is what Guru Maharaj wanted. Remember? It's like almost 30 years since the fragmentation of the Valley Ram. I'm here! And we can all do the mission. We can do Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. So Prabhupada was writing especially people who were still kind of active, even though it was fragmented. There were still some powerful people. And he wrote one person. This is all in the database, if you happen to have the database. And if you only have time to read one letter, read November 8th, 1965 to Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj, because you really get a flavor of Prabhupada's mood, of what he's intending to do. He's intending to revive the Gaudiya mission. And so he says, Maharaj, you know, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's grace, you have those Kolkata Marwaris in the palm of your hand. You can get them to donate crores of rupees, and you have the connections in Delhi to get those rupees released as dollars in America. You know what I'm finding here, Maharaj? I'm finding the Ramakrishna mission is here. And with their 10th class, Prabhupada said, rubbish philosophy. They're fooling these naive Americans who are mad after anything Vedic, but they don't know anything. So they're being sold Mayavad philosophy. And they have this big skyscraper, $1 million skyscraper. We need a skyscraper too. So let's look at what Prabhupada wrote. Here's an excerpt from the letter, and you're going to see Prabhupada's mood here. You got the, okay, so how about a big booming voice? Who has a booming voice? I think you just do. You have a booming voice? You must with those kids, right?
Right.
Read that. I've highlighted different forms of the word cooperation, as Prabhupada said it.
So here is a chance for cooperation between us, and I shall be glad to know if you are ready for this cooperation. I came here to study the situation, and I find it very nice. And if you are also agreeable to cooperate, it will be all very nice by the will of Srila Prabhupada. If you agree, then take it for granted that I am one of the workers of the Sri Mayapur Chaitanya Math. I have no ambition for becoming the proprietor of any math or mandir, but I want working facilities.
Yes, long before the corporate culture coined the phrase servant leader, this is Prabhupada. He was doing it. You want a chair? We got chairs. Why don't you sit down? Please. Look, it's your movement, Maharaj. Look, I'm just one of the workers. You can be in charge, but I can recruit devotees. I can organize everything. I just need funds, and you can do it. What kind of response did Prabhupada get?
Nothing.
Not much at all. Not much at all. Sometimes he was even criticized. What you're doing, if this isn't bona fide, Maharaj, this will be ludicrous. Prabhupada said, ludicrous? You think this is my personal business? This is what Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta wanted. Remember? Unfortunately, as Ravinda Sarup Prabhu puts it, the imp of non-cooperation that destroyed the Gaudiya mission was still alive and well in the 1960s, so they did not cooperate with him. Prabhupada, I think the only person who did something a little bit, it was Narayan Maharaj, his god-nephew, the disciple of his sannyas guru, Keshav Maharaj, finally sent him some incense and some instruments. The first Mridanga arrived on the west coast in '67. He didn't get any cooperation. And then Prabhupada, he was only able to survive that winter. I lived through that winter. This was a brutal winter. 65 going into 66. It was wicked. It was just snowstorm after snowstorm. Icy winds that could take your breath away. And there's Prabhupada in his little white pointy rubber slippers, and dhoti. Somebody gave him an overcoat. And Dr. Ramamurti Mishra, this impersonal yogi, gave him a little windowless room to stay in, So Prabhupada, that long, cold, dark, you can relate to that here in Sweden, right? Winter, Prabhupada is basically by himself. And he's writing letters, he's hardly getting any response. And he's trying to support himself by selling those books he brought over. Putting his books in the bookstores. and pleading with him to keep him in the bookstores on consignment a little longer. He'd bring samosas, he'd make samosas and try to, and it works. Sometimes they just, oh, these are very nice, thank you. Yes, I'll keep your books a little longer. Here. Okay. So what did Lord Chaitanya show Srila Prabhupada from September 65, when he arrived, until July 66, when he finally was able to get his own place and start ISKCON? He showed them that, Maharaj, you're going to have to go it alone with me and your Guru Maharaj and the 6 Goswamis. We'll help you, but your godbrothers aren't going to help you. So in 1966, Prabhupada went from obscurity, nobody knew anything about him, to at least Swamiji. His first followers were calling him Swamiji. So, you want to read this, Manvi? You have to press the on, just hold it for 3 seconds.
Neglected?
You got to hold it. Okay.
Neglect?
Whoop. You got a battery change issue here? Or? Yeah, here comes the reinforcements.
Wait, because it was ordered, it didn't make sound. So it's neglect? No.
No? All right. Why don't you change the battery and I'll just read it. All right, you got some juice.
Neglected by his godbrothers, Srila Prabhupada was obliged to found a fresh branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. On July 13, 1966, in New York City, he incorporated the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, signing the papers only with his sannyas name, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
Yes, by now Prabhupada knows what Lord Chaitanya is asking him to do. He's asking him to revive the Sampradaya, make a clean break from the debacle, the Holocaust, the catastrophe after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left the Gaudiya mission, and start a fresh branch. As Prabhupada puts it in CC, he says ISKCON is a branch of the Bhakti Kalpataru, the desire tree of devotional service, Lord Chaitanya. So he knows that he can't command respect amongst all these, hippies, what to speak of egalitarian Americans. He's just going to have to demand respect. He's going to have to command it by his example. So he just signs that A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, no founder acharya, no Prabhupada. And he just inspired. He managed by inspiration, as we saw yesterday when Niranjan Swami was trying to disavow his being the father of Bhakti Sangam. I mean, it just reinforced in my mind that he was the father, right? Because he managed by inspiration. So that's what Prabhupada's doing. Then he shocked the first followers of his in New York by doing the outrageous thing of leaving New York in January '67 and founding a branch on the West Coast, right? And then he came back to New York in April '67, and he was still going non-stop. And his followers just couldn't believe it. What is this person? It could be our grandfather. And he's going all day, cooking, cleaning, and he stays up all nights and translates, and he goes to the park and he chants with us for hours. But then Krishna showed them that you're going to have to do more for this person, because Prabhupada, in May, on a day we call Memorial Day in America, to honor the people who died in wars, Prabhupada had a heart attack. That third heart attack didn't come on the ship, it came later. And a stroke. He gets partial paralysis. So the devotees were shocked. They realized, wow, Swamiji's been taking care of us, now we have to take care of him. That's when he started the massage and the morning walks like that. And then they tried to help Prabhupada get better by sending him to the New Jersey shore. It didn't work, even though it was June now. It was blustery, it was chilly, Prabhupada wasn't getting any better. And then the devotees in the West Coast, where Lord Jagannath had already appeared, they said, oh, we're going to have a Rath Yatra, Swamiji, come on out to the West Coast. Yeah, you'll certainly get better in sunny California. Come on out. So Prabhupada went out there. Similar thing. They put him in a beach house. Has anybody been to San Francisco?
It's all cloudy.
Yes. Famous quote.
What's the famous quote? Is it Mark Twain?
Mark Twain. Tell us the quote. The coldest winter.
I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. Mark Twain. So Prabhupada didn't get better there either. And then the devotees are really getting worried because now he's saying, I have to go back to India to get my health back. I have to go. And so on the day of the Rath Yatra, Prabhupada was so weak that he couldn't go. 3 people stayed back at this little bungalow in Stinson Beach called El Paradiso. It was Mukunda, Kirtanananda, and Hayagriva. And Kirtanananda and Hayagriva kind of forced Mukunda to ask Swamiji a question he didn't want to ask. And here's the question. Ramanath Sukha.
When you die, what will happen to the movement, I ask? Will you have a successor who will continue your work and look after our spiritual education?
As I heard myself say the words, I realized it had been a mistake to ask this. The Swamiji sat silently, looking out the window at the sand dunes.
Who's speaking this?
This is Mukunda in his book, Miracle on Second Avenue. Looking at the sand dunes. And the mountains. It was high tide and I could hear the waves pounding the beach. Seagulls shrieked. The Swami muttered something quietly. I couldn't hear what you said, Swami, I said carefully. Can you repeat it, Ramana?
Actually, it is an insult to the spiritual master.
He turned away from the window and looked at me pensively, as if he was hurt by my question. I'm sorry, Swami, I said. I felt like shrinking into the carpet. He closed his eyes. Outside, a dog barked. A shallow stream of tears appeared below each of his eyes and flowed over his cheeks. He slowly wiped them away. My spiritual master, he said, and his voice choked to gravel. I was stunned. What had I done? Read.
My spiritual master, he said, he was no ordinary spiritual master. He paused again and then whispered falteringly, he saved me.
He saved me. Isn't that unusual? Prabhupada saying ordinary spiritual master. Remember we heard in lesson 1 there's different levels of spiritual masters. Usually Prabhupada says regular guru. But in this case it was such a dramatic moment because they asked, should we get one of your godbrothers to come? Prabhupada said, he was no ordinary spiritual master. He saved me. Now the purport to this incident was recorded a little later in another book by Hayagriva, who also wrote a book called The Hare Krishna Explosion. Later, I think it was either later that day or the next day, Prabhupada referred to that exchange and said this. Ramanath, you want to?
Later, Swamiji tells us what we should have always known. There is no one to replace him. The very idea is insulting. If someone comes and tells you something different, he says, you will be confused.
You will be confused. Note the phrase, no ordinary spiritual master in both accounts. So I didn't, anyway, it wasn't that, it was another part. Reminding us of the difference between a regular spiritual master, as glorious as that is, and a great acharya. Neglected by his godbrothers, Srila Prabhupada knows and is now disclosing that he is being uniquely empowered to lead the new international Vaishnavas as the founder acharya of a dynamic branch of Lord Chaitanya's tree of love of God. Prabhupada knows that because he's been willing to do what no one else was willing to do. He's been uniquely empowered to turn international folks into Vaishnavas. At the same time, Prabhupada didn't want them to get an offensive attitude toward his godbrothers, so a few months later, Prabhupada wrote a letter to Brahmananda and said this, quote, "Even amongst our godbrothers, we have misunderstanding, but none of us is astray from the service of Krishna. My Guru Maharaj ordered us to execute his mission combinedly. Unfortunately, we are now separated, but none of us have stopped preaching Krishna consciousness. Even if there was misunderstanding amongst the godbrothers of my Guru Maharaj, none of them deviated from the transcendental loving service of Krishna." So Prabhupada, he would sometimes say and publish very heavy things about some of his godbrothers and the way the history went with the Gaudiya mission. But he would also say things like this too, because he didn't want us to get an offensive, negative attitude toward them. He just didn't want us to take intimate shiksha from them, especially about how to run a worldwide preaching mission. Okay. So the above incident further set the stage for Lord Chaitanya to reveal Swamiji as Srila Prabhupada. In 65, he was in obscurity. 66, it became Swamiji. 67, only he, right? Only he could lead them, as the third volume of the Lilamrita is titled. And now in 68, in May, 10 months later after that incident, he becomes Prabhupada. And this is a real good example of how Prabhupada he knew his position by this time, what Lord Chaitanya was asking him to do. But he was very carefully revealing it to the devotees because he knew it had to come from us. The respect had to come from us. He couldn't force it. He couldn't demand it. And here is the incident. And the incident happened in Boston in May 68 on the occasion of the first Brahmin initiations. And Prabhupada gave Gayatri to some of the men, and two ladies were present, Jadharani and Govinda, and them being modern ladies, they wanted it too. They weren't satisfied with necessarily just, getting the benefit from their husbands. As traditionally in India, you don't have to separately initiate the lady, but they wanted it too, and one of them even sort of boycotted the initiation. She was so bad, So Prabhupada saw there was some discouragement there, so he made an adjustment. And he also gave them Gayatri. And then afterwards, Govinda Dasi has this memoir. So, all along, everyone knew him as Swamiji. This is up until May of 1968. So my husband, Gaurasundar, decided he wanted to call me Govindaji. And so he asked Prabhupada, because Ji, her husband he was dabbling in Sanskrit, and he read that Ji is a term of endearment, a term of affection. So my husband, he wanted to call me Govindaji. So I piped up, it's American slang, it means I spoke up. I piped up, I was sitting right in front of him, because Govinda was his personal secretary at that point, and Gaurasundar, her husband, was the servant. They were a husband and wife servant-secretary team. And Prabhupada allowed a very kind of familiar relationship between himself and Govinda in terms of her relating to him. You're going to hear this right now. So I piped up. I was sitting right in front of him. And I said, well, if G is a third-class form of address, why are we calling you G? Why are we calling you Swamiji? And he said, oh, it's not very important. So first, Prabhupada, he just tries to dismiss it. Tries to change the subject, right? Oh, it's not very important. If it's a third-class form of address, it's not very important, Prabhupada said. But then Govinda says, oh no, it's very important. If it's a third-class form of address, then we don't want to call you that. Okay, Mataji, you're the right gender for this one. You're going to read Govinda. Now you got to read this with a Texas accent. Govinda is a very strong-minded, plain-spoken Texas lady. So That's all right. There you go.
We want to call you the most first-class form of address. So tell us what would be a good name for us to call you by. And he was very humble, very reluctant, but I pressed him. We got to change this. And he said, you can call me Gurudev or Guru Maharaj or Prabhupada.
You see what's happening? First Prabhupada says, oh, it's not very important. And now he's seeing it's coming from them, right? It's coming. And they really do want to call him something more respectful. And so he starts throwing out names here. So I said,
well, that's 3. We need 1. So which one is the best? And he answered, Srila Prabhupada is nice. That is the best. So I said, from today, you will be called Srila Prabhupada.
Govinda Balaji ki! And then Govinda says, so I told all the devotees. And some of the devotees, they didn't like it. Because it's kind of a tongue twister. Prabhupada. And Swamiji flows more freely off the tongue. But we gradually started calling him Srila Prabhupada from that time. So, now look, just imagine, you see it says, Prabhupada saying, you can call me Gurudev, Guru Maharaj, or Prabhupada. If Prabhupada had said, call me Guru Maharaj or Gurudev, the change would not have been so momentous. Because Prabhupada is a different category of Guru. He's a master at whose feet all masters sit. So that was what Prabhupada did. He gave them, he started, okay, it's coming from them, and then he gave them choice, and then he picked it. Okay, call me Prabhupada. And that became an issue later too with his godbrothers. Some of them didn't like that. Right. All right. So, yes. Now that was, okay, so 65 obscurity, 66 Swamiji, 67 only, 68 Prabhupada. Now the month I joined, July 70, okay. Then Prabhupada had an opportunity, legally actually, in official documents, to introduce founder Acharya. Because I didn't know it, I was too young to know what was going on. But when I joined the movement in July 70, there was a threat against ISKCON, coming from some envious people in India who were giving some ISKCON leaders in America a compromised view of Prabhupada. And it was manifesting in weird ways. And one of the ways, for example, like I joined in Boston where there was ISKCON Press. And it was before the BBT really got going. And Brahmananda Swami, he would offer the latest volume to Prabhupada. We were coming out with the second canto in paperback chapters. So Brahmananda handed the ladest volume to Prabhupada, and it said, to identify the author, the translator, and the commentator, it said, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta. No Swami, no Prabhupada, no founder Acharya. I mean, practically stripped of any spiritual significance, you know. So it was in July, the very month I joined, Prabhupada formed the GBC because one of the corrective measures he took was he asked some leaders he could still trust to join him on a governing body, you know, fully 7 years before he disappeared. So, and it was practically all householders because there were hardly any swamis in the movement then. On July 28, 1970, when Srila Prabhupada legally established a governing body commission to manage ISKCON, he formally identified his relationship to his mission. So right in this document, it's called Direction of Management in your database, you find this. International Society for Krishna Consciousness Incorporated, founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. You know, it was there legally on paper, but still, we didn't really know the full import of that. You know, we hardly knew anything. So there were still weird things going on, like Prabhupada would get letters from temple presidents, and then they would be on the letters would be written on their personal stationery, so Prabhupada would answer their questions. And then he would say, by the way, when you write me a letter, you should write on temple stationery. And on the temple stationery, it should say, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the BBT finally did get going and they moved into their new place, and then Prabhupada visited to tour the place, there was nothing on the building to identify it as what it was, BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Which, by the way, the next day, Prabhupada, after he established the GBC as the governing body in training, then the next day, on July 29th, Prabhupada incorporated the BBT. Why did he incorporate it separately? For Ghosh Guru.
Well, I don't know what answer you're looking for, but the answer I will give is because for two reasons. One was he wanted it legally separate so as that the day-to-day running of the BBT could not be interfered with other than by the BBT trustees. They would actually run on a day-to-day basis. But uniquely, he established a relationship between the BBT and ISKCON, that ISKCON is the sole beneficiary of all BBT assets. So it was like kind of a marriage with separation, that there were boundaries and guidelines clearly established within that, so that it gets managed. A little bit like the way he wanted each centre around the world established. That you know, here in Albic, they have a board, they have a legal establishment, and they're legally the guardians of that, and they're responsible for it. It's not that someone from outside can come in and directly start interfering. But at the same time, the idea is that outside authority, the GBC, should have oversight. And anyway, this is a big discussion because actually, you know, with the BBT, he clearly established it that ISKCON was the sole beneficiary. And if you start studying trust law and what the rights of a sole beneficiary are, they're quite substantial. So the idea of the day-to-day management is still separate from them. But if anything goes wrong, then they have a legal basis for stepping in and you know, correcting the wrong that might take place.
Very good, and especially in the light of the Gaudiya Math history, you know, when the Gaudiya Math did fragment one of the camps that were vying for the assets of the Gaudiya mission, what did they do? They sold the press to pay for court costs. So God forbid, Prabhupada must have been thinking of the history, if anything should happen to ISKCON, there would at least still be a publishing house to publish the books too. Yeah, so that's, you can say, another reason. Okay, now, things were still pretty wild. I mean, it was such a privilege to be in ISKCON during when Prabhupada was walking among us, but it was also a wild ride. Because we didn't know much. You know, we were enthusiastic and we were so inspired by Srila Prabhupada, but wild things happened. Like one fine day in 1974, the president of a certain temple sold the temple, right, without anybody knowing it, took the money, and ran. So after that happened, Prabhupada decided it was time to add an amendment to this direction of management. So he dictated the elements of the amendment to the GBC, who codified, you know, cleaned up the language perhaps a little bit, and then here's the amendment. So we're going to have Ghosh Guru read this.
On July 22nd, 1974, Srila Prabhupada drafted an amendment to his earlier management document, reasserting his supreme position in the world. It is declared that His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
And now Prabhupada's going to spell out, Prabhupada and his GBC are going to spell out what exactly that means, founder Acharya. Here it is.
He is the supreme authority in all matters of the society. His position cannot be occupied by anyone else, and his name and title must appear on all documents, letterheads, publications, and buildings of the society.
And today we could add websites in this digital age. I was at a prominent temple of ours in Europe, and I just for fun before I presented, I went to their website to see how they were presenting Prabhupada on the homepage. Couldn't find him. Ooh, he wasn't there. Then I saw a tab that said, History. I clicked on History. Sure enough, there's a little picture, a little blurb. Now this is a few years ago. This is before the publication of the Foundracharya book. It was before the Foundracharya consciousness was really peaking, in terms of that GBC resolution in 2013 and the book coming out in 2014. So aghast, I went to one of the managers and I said, Prabhu, if we think Prabhupada's history, guess what we are? We're history too. So that was 74. That same summer that Prabhupada's reasserting his supremacy in ISKCON, he's revealing his internal mood in a purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita, because that summer he was also translating CC. And now we're going to see, if you've heard Vrinda Swarup Prabhu give his seminar about the book, then you'll recognize this one. Okay. Want to read? All right, Janeshwar Prabhu, can you read that?
That same year, 1974, even as Srila Prabhupada was reasserting his position as ISKCON's founder Acharya, while he was translating the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he also reasserted his and our disciplic obedience and service to his own spiritual master in the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Now here's the excerpt from the purport.
As members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we belong to the family of the disciplic succession of Saraswati Goswami, and thus we are known as Saraswata.
Saraswata, just like Kaunteya, it's a name derived from the mother or son of Kunti. So Prabhupada said, we're Saraswats.
Obeisances are therefore offered to the spiritual master as Saraswata Deva, or a member of the Saraswati family. Namaste Saraswata Devi, whose mission is to broadcast the account of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauravani Pratyavana, and to fight with impersonalists and voidists, Nirvishesha Shunyavana Pratyavana.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada is reminding us that we are all coming in that disciplic line from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and on back. And that Prabhupada has started, yes, he started ISKCON, but ISKCON is not existing in a vacuum. It's continuing, it's reviving the Gaudiya tradition. So that's 1974, and the last slide of the lesson before we break for questions is on Prabhupada's one and only visit to the continent of South America. Don't think Central America, where Mexico City is, because Prabhupada did go there a few times. But he went to, anybody know where he went?
Venezuela?
Yes, Caracas, which is in chaos right now. Prabhupada was lecturing on Bhagavatam 111, Janmadya Sayataha. And, okay, Prabhu, why don't you read that?
So here it is said that origin is life, because here it is said, Yatonyadat itarachasta arteshu apikyana swarat.
Means?
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent.
Yes, now we're going to hear Prabhupada's audio of making a very interesting analogy. Just as Krishna is the origin and knower of everything that's coming from him, so he, Prabhupada, how come was, maybe I've got my volume down. Are we ready for it? Okay.
Just like he and Chaitanya, the origin of this Krishna consciousness movement, that means I know everything directly and indirectly of all this movement. If I do not know directly and indirectly everything of this movement, then I cannot be called the founder Acharya. And as soon as the origin becomes a knower, he is like.
As soon as the origin becomes a knower, He is life. The origin is not a dead stone. So life comes from life. And the origin of ISKCON, even though now it's a big, huge international organization, is a person. And not just one person. ISKCON is the latest manifestation of Krishna consciousness all over the world. It's a conscious being. Even there's a Western philosopher, Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, an institution is the lengthened shadow of a man. It might appear, so vast, it might appear to be impersonal. Prabhupada talks about this in the Bhagavatam, the lights are blinking and the street lights, you might think it's all happening automatically, but there's actually intelligent design. There's intelligence, there's consciousness, there's people behind everything. So, final slide. That's the name of the lesson, Srila Prabhupada Founder Acharya. It's a kind of balancing slide because we're focusing on Prabhupada's position, his unique position as the Founder Acharya. That doesn't mean we're neglecting everybody else because there's no meaning, just like there's no meaning to Krishna without his energies. So there's no meaning to Prabhupada without his devotees. So as ISKCON's Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada is the life and soul of all generations of his followers. Moreover, whoever enriches our foundational identity as Prabhupada Anugas, that means Prabhupada followers, is also glorious, deepening the cooperation we'll need to take Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya's mission of Krishna consciousness to every town and village on earth. As you've heard me say before, my core identity is not that I'm Prabhupada's initiated disciple, it's that I'm his Shiksha follower. And for the last 46 years, who are my best friends? Those who are deepening that identity. Just like I joined in Boston in 1970, the president was Satsarup Das Adhikari. So we've known each other for a long time, through thick and thin. And there's no meaning to our relationship except Srila Prabhupada. So that kind of person is the most important person in my very human life because he's deepening my relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So it's not just about me and Prabhupada or us and Prabhupada. It's about anybody who is deepening that relationship. So that's the end of the Sambandha section of the seminar. We've done 3 lessons now. I hope you get an idea, you've gotten an idea of the importance of Prabhupada's unique identity. Starting tomorrow, we're going to launch into the Abhideya section where we deepen our commitment to his mission, and we're going to look at the mission from the moment he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, until the moment he stepped on the Jaladutta. Okay. By the end of this lesson, the lesson we just did, students will be able to identify Puranic and Gaudiya prophecies Srila Prabhupada fulfilled. We should be able to recount Lord Chaitanya's historical stage setting, both east and west, for Prabhupada to come. Recount how Prabhupada went from obscurity to Swamiji to only he to Prabhupada to Founder Acharya between 1965 and 1970. Recount how Prabhupada formally identified his supreme position in ISKCON and how he was later obliged to reassert that position. Identify the position of Srila Prabhupada and ourselves in relation to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Lord Chaitanya's mission. And finally, from that last Caracas quote, we should be able to see how Prabhupada is the life and soul of all generations of his followers. Okay, I'm going to sit down and we have 15 minutes until we have to start dismantling this for the next presentation of Pragosh Prabhu. Any questions? Yes, and try to keep your questions focused on the points of the lesson. Yes.
In terms of the title Founder Acharya, yesterday I was reading the biography of Yamuna Devi. And in the beginning, she tells about first meeting with Srila Prabhupada when she comes in, and no, I think it's after the wedding and everything. She's going back, and he has some small presentation cards, and he gives one to her, and she says that it said
Yes.
International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Founder Acharya.
Yes, you're right. I mean, there are actually, Prabhupada did drop some seeds on some of those 1960s back to Godheads. I think December 66 and somewhere in 69, you'll find that. You'll find a little thing where he did drop that. But there was no explanation. There was no, because we weren't ready. But as we became ready to know more and want to respect him more and follow him more, he would reveal more. And here we are. We're still trying to understand deeper what it means, Founder Acharya. I mean, otherwise, why am I doing this seminar, right? Why are we publishing books about that? Because we really need to get it. And that's a key to finding the unity that we need to go on for centuries and millennia. But you're right, there were I didn't mention that. But historically, Prabhupada did drop those little seeds. Thank you. I knew it had appeared in BTG. I didn't know what that detail from Jamuna's book. I read that too, and it struck me. Oh, Prabhupada did that too, right there.
That's like 66, no?
Yeah, 66. Yes. Yeah, Joan came for Jan's wedding. Yes, David.
Just for the sake of protecting the future generations from cheaply imitating.
From imitating?
Yes, yeah, because I mean, even in these 50 years, we've had it that people think, oh, they are the only ones who know the real mission, and they go off and they, are the founder Acharya of their own thing. So, what could be the principle to protect us from this?
All right. Well, your question reminds me of, I think, one perhaps, who knows, who's it for me to know the mind of the Lord, that we went through what we went through in the 1980s especially. I mean, we're still, maybe sometimes even still, feeling the ramifications of the Zonal Acharya days. Well, we do this lesson, I won't have time to do it here, I call it Fictional Prabhupads. And the remedy for every fiction is to really get back to total immersion in the Founder Acharya's life, teachings, mood, and mission. When I was doing the basic research for this series, I was thinking, now, for people to attend this seminar, there's going to have to be prerequisites. They're going to have to have read Prabhupada's Gita as it is and the full Lilamrita. Now, if I made that a prereq, I mean, I would hardly have anybody. Sometimes I ask my audiences, how many have read the Lilamrita? And very few. Now that's fundamental stuff. I mean, if you really want to know Prabhupada, you at least have to read his biography. And there's so many. I'm just reading now another biography. I'm reading Yogeshwara Prabhu's biography, which is, wow, it's great. This is like a new millennium version. It's the 50th anniversary version. It's really well done. It's very cinematic because he makes movies. He puts you right there. So that's kind of an inoculation against doing that kind of stuff. The more you know, and the more you experience Prabhupada through sound, the less chance you have of falling into that illusion. But it takes constant application. Because while the creeper's growing, the weeds grow too. So you have to weed your garden, Yeah. That's a brief answer. Yes, Pragosh Babu.
Following on from David's lead, philosophically, we understand why the rhythmic philosophy doesn't work in the exact semantic. So philosophically, we understand that. On a practical level, in generally, people tend to be much more, their senses are much more engaged by a living person. And actually we will see in, I don't know if many is an exaggeration, but certainly some, we can see in some parts of the world where current living gurus in Islam, where their Vyasa pujas will be much more enthusiastically celebrated, and certainly in terms of numbers attending, will be far more numbers attending than it would be necessarily from Vyasa puja. The Christians, you know, that their focus, they have a rigid philosophy in many respects, it seems. I mean, they often don't get into that, but that's it. And Jesus Christ seems to have maintained his position in their organization for like over 2,000 years. It seems, just my anecdotal experience, I'm not basing it on anything, you know, deep study or anything like that. It seems it's a constant struggle to try to keep Prabhupada in the center of the Hare Krishna movement, particularly as it relates to living groups. So again, just following on from David's point that, you know, I'm not expecting you to come up with a magic answer as to how to maintain the regular parampara system while at the same time Prabhupada remaining, you know, and that it's not a struggle for us to have Prabhupada remaining prominent.
Yeah. Thank you. That's given me a little opening into my favorite story. I don't know if I have to, if I tell this story, I think you're going to have to help me take down because you're on next to 12:15. I'll try to do this short version, but when I was doing the basic research of this seminar, I have a colleague and she prefers to remain anonymous, so she's not, you know, she doesn't want to be the poster child of how to take initiation in ISKCON, but she has a very interesting story. And I knew the story because she's a friend of mine. And so I said, Mataji, why don't you email me the details of how you finally took initiation in ISKCON after 17 years of being in ISKCON? Okay, I'll try to make this the short one. So she read Prabhupada's Gita in 1987, was thrilled, wow, this is the absolute truth, the Chinchabeda Veda Tattva. Wanted so much to meet the author, then she's mortified to find out the author has left this world 10 years earlier in 77. But is so inspired, she starts to participate in ISKCON. 4 years later, she ends up marrying a Prabhupada initiate. And she's already was a teacher before she came. And so she's reading Prabhupada's books, and she knows that she has to take the step of being initiated. But she joined in 87, which was still some heavy stuff was going on in ISKCON. And then in 91, she married, and she's reading Prabhupada's books, and she knows it's a necessary step. So she starts corresponding with someone that she wants to take initiation from. And then the person says, well, I'm not initiating much anymore, and you'll probably never see me, and you're already married to a Prabhupada initiate, so why don't you just take instructions from your husband? So she's disappointed, and she, you know, but okay, I'll just do that. So she started doing that. And then she's still reading Prabhupada's books. And then the 90s go on, and it's kind of still going through its somersaults and its traumas and its dramas, its guru-disciple culture. And she starts getting a little bit of an attitude, a fear that she doesn't know if she wants to take initiation. She doesn't want to risk perhaps getting disappointed or even betrayed, right? But she's still reading Prabhupada's books, and in Prabhupada's books it says things like, you know, unless you take initiation, unless one receives initiation, the actual connection with Krishna consciousness is never made. And then the 90s close out, and you remember Y2K? You remember all that stuff? Yeah. And the way the world did not end, it didn't go up in a puff of cyber smoke, and so the new millennium is there, and so so the dilemma arises again, you know, this is the dilemma. She keeps reading Prabhupada's books. She knows she has to take initiation, but she sees practically what's been going on in ISKCON, what has been. And it's getting a little better, okay, but she's still gun-shy now. And so she says to her husband, Prabhu, I got to resolve this. I'm going crazy, you know. 2003, they're at a festival, and she hears a Maharaj speak. She's very inspired. And she says, Prabhu, well, we've got to meet with Maharaj. I got to resolve this. I'm going insane. You know, let's ask the organizer of the festival if we can have darshan with Maharaj. You know? So they approach the organizer, and the organizer says, well, you know, Maharaj just got back, and he's really tired, and he's really ill. He's actually not feeling well, and he's exhausted, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you 10 minutes. So, 10 minutes, right, to solve all their problems. But 10 minutes turned into 20 minutes, and 20 minutes turned into 30 minutes, and 30 minutes turned into 40 minutes, and she's telling her all about her dilemma, and how she can't now, after 17 years of reading Prabhupada's books, she knows Prabhupada's her foundational spiritual master. And she can't imagine offering incense or food to anybody else. You know, but she knows that Prabhupada wants her to take initiation. So then she says, is this offensive? Am I being offensive? And so the Maharaj says, no, that's not offensive. It's intelligent. And then he proceeds to tell her about everything he went through before he accepted Prabhupada. And then he said, what if you took initiation from someone who would not block your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, but who would enhance your relationship, who would bring you closer, who would deepen it, who would enrich it? And what does the poor lady say? Oh, I never heard that before. No wonder she's been having problems, right? She never heard that. Well, that's one of the main roles of Diksha and Shiksha Gurus in ISKCON, as we're understanding more and more, right? So, that was 2003. 2004, in that ensuing year, she ended up corresponding with Mara, and then a year later she took Diksha. So I knew her story. So in 2011, when I started researching it, I said, Mara, will you please put this down? And she said, yeah, but you don't mention my name. I said, okay, don't worry. So she told me the story, just as I told you. And then she had a nice epilogue. And she said, and Suresvara Prabhu, I'm happy to say that in the 7 years that I've taken initiation from Maharaj, not only has he kept his promise to bring me closer to Prabhupada and enrich my relationship with Prabhupada, but now because he is who he is, he's also taken his place in my heart at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And I said, yes, this is Parampara. This is how it's supposed to be. The whole mystery of the Parampara, Prabhupada says in Gita 1875 purport, it rests on transparency. So, we're a work in progress. We're all being invited by Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya to participate in the Parampara. How transparent am I to Prabhupada? You know, we're supposed to all become gurus. We heard in the first lesson, what did Prabhupada say? We require many millions of gurus. So we're all being challenged. Okay, I see hands because this is a very deep subject and I'm afraid. No. Okay, the next presenter is waving me through the red light. All right, Maharaj.
Yes, thank you. This dilemma that the present spiritual master kind of eclipses Srila Prabhupada.
He doesn't have to.
No, but I'm thinking that must be more part of the disciple culture than on the spiritual master's behalf, because all our spiritual masters are following Prabhupada and following Prabhupada's mission, and the only reason we connect with them is because we're also connecting to Prabhupada's mission through them. So it seems to be, in my eyes, I mean, I'm coming from this area where we had a Sonal Guru, but I never heard him give a single speech without saying, okay, we're doing this for Prabhupada because I'm doing it for Prabhupada. And we could even have that feeling in the Sonacharya time, what to speak of now.
Yes. But it was wrong. Why? Why was his Sonacharya system wrong? Because in those days...
No, of course it was wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I don't...
from my vision, but of course I'm from a very protected little corner of the world, but from my vision it seems that it's not the guru standing in the way, but it's the disciples developing these cultures, this like fangirl culture type of thing, that is the problem more than the actual spiritual masters.
And when the spiritual master sees that, what is his duty to do?
Stop.
To stop it. Don't make him a cult. I once saw a letter from Niranjan Maharaj to a disciple in 1997 where the disciple had written what she thought was a glorification of him, applying the Kunjayuna Ratikeli Siddhaye to him. And he wrote a letter back, and in fact it said, don't you dare. Don't you even think it. That's not me. I'm not on that level. So, yeah, it's the duty of, and you know that, I won't go there. Anyway, that's how it works. It rests on transparency. So to be a united movement as we go forward into the new millennium, or new millennia, we really need to understand Prabhupada's position deeply so that everybody, so we can cooperate. So we have the same common identity. We're Prabhupada and Nugas. Otherwise, we're still carrying over remnants of the Zonal Acharya era in which there were as many Hare Krishna movements as there were Zonal Gurus. And it was wrong. It was fragmenting the movement. It was wrong. Okay. Yeah, when Pragosh Prabhu brought up this, more elaborate Vyasa Pujas, when I did this seminar in a certain place of the world to protect the innocent, one of the people who invited me, one of the managers said, oh, I'm so glad you're coming to the seminar, Prabhu, because we just had the Vyasa Puja for my Guru Maharaj, and I'm one of the older disciples of Guru Maharaj, and the younger disciples, they insisted on having a Vyasa Puja grander than Prabhupada's, and I said, this is wrong. And they said, what do you mean it's wrong? Prabhupada only initiated 5,000 disciples. Actually, it wasn't even 5,000, it was 4,790 or something. 5,000 disciples, and Guru Maharaj, he's initiated tens of thousands of disciples. So we have to have a grander. They thought it was a numbers game or something. They didn't know what. They didn't have a clue. So he really, and he'd had his fill of that. He didn't want it. He didn't want to hear it. So he was happy to have the seminar. Okay, we could go on a long time with this, but I really want Pragosh Prabhu to have enough time. So please come tomorrow when we move fearlessly into Abhideya. This is the only lesson of Abhideya we're going to have time to do, because I'm going to do one from Prayojana on Friday. But it's my favorite one because it ends, I love the ending. It ends with a beautiful song from my god sister that you'll hear. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.